order to build the kirar, we need a full scale drawing of the kirar. So I like to put it on a piece of plywood. This is 3/4 inch plywood, and we can then use it as a work board to help secure the kirar during the building process. So the first thing to do is we need a center line. Typically I would do this in pencil, but for the camera, so it shows up better, I'm going to use a Sharpie. So it's 12 inches, so I am going to make it a center line. And then we need a series of horizontal lines going up. So the first one we need is at 1 inch. The next one is at 5 inches. The next one is at 10 3/4 inches. The next one's 11 1/4. The next one is at 22 1/4. I'll go to my longer ruler here. Then I need one at 23 1/4. And I want to have a line go straight across. Now I know that this is square. If your workboard is not perfectly square, I recommend that you draw up the sides and then connect the dots, but because mine is square, I can then square up my side. And always measuring off the same side. So then, since we have our center point, we're going to use our compass. We're going to make a 4-inch radius. Now that may not show up in the camera, but I have a semicircle drawn in. And at the line, second from the top, we're going to make a 10-inch line, 5 inches out from each side. This is a centering ruler. You can get these at a craft store or online. And I'll show you what it does in a moment. So I set up 0, and if I just count over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches. That's my 10-inch. So then I'm going to connect up the intersection there to the top of my semicircle. So now we're starting to get the outline of our kirar. So there's 2 curves we have to draw. One goes from this point and this point up through this point. That will be the top of our kirar. And then we need one from this point to this point through this one, and that will be the top of our body. Now, before we draw our curves, we have to account for the thickness of our side, which is 1/8 of an inch. So this ruler is marked in 1/8 inch increments, which makes this task a little bit easier. If not, just measure it off. So on our body, which goes up to here, we have now accounted for the thickness of our side that comes around. Now I want to account for the thickness of our neck pieces, so I am going to draw in 3/4 of an inch and from the outside, from the inside line, I'm going to come in 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, and 3/4 of an inch. To show you what I mean is this will be our neck piece that comes down to approximately here, and if I line it up here and I line it up, you get a good sense of what it's going to look like. To make the curve at the top, you're just going to use a flexible ruler. But in order to use the ruler, I'm going to attach some brads to the workboard, and that will allow me to secure this with some clamps and trace the curve. Now I have the shape of the curve. I am going to use my Sharpie and trace it. And there we have the shape of the top of the kirar. And this will be the shape of the top of the body. This curve matches this curve. The remaining curve we need is right here for our tuner block, or our tuner plate. So I will line up our neck pieces on the outer line. I'll draw, just marking this in pencil for now because I don't need this to be permanent. In order to do this curve to match this curve, we're going to measure down 4 1/4 inches from this line, that's the second line down, and make a mark. I'll confirm that that's at 4 inches. And there we have it. It's hard to see this line, but it does match that. It's a 4-inch radius. You can see that at this point it's 8 inches across. So this and this are equal. So there's our workboard. We're going to be using this quite a lot. We're going to be using it for making the kirar. So let's move on to the next step. So the last step is to mark the edge of our workboard. So we want to go 1 inch outside of the lines. And this and you'll see why this is important later. Then on the top of our body, we're going to make 2 lines. We're going to make one that's 1 inch, then we're going to make one. It's 3 inches. In a moment you'll see why that's important. You can see I drilled a couple holes to allow us to put our saw blade in here and cut out this section, and that will become important when we attach the top to the crar, the top and the back. And there we have it, our workboard almost complete. We're just going to put a couple of shims on here a little bit later, but this is one more thing we're going to do with the board is just a note for ourselves, which is we're going to build the crar top side down. The other thing I want to do is I want to put A and B on our workboard. That way we can keep track of which is the A side and the B side, because as we're making our neck we want to keep the A side on the A and our B side on the B.